For years, experts, analysts, and even rival pilots all agreed on one thing: what was being claimed simply couldn't be done. In an era ruled by stealth giants, massive budgets, and extremely complex fighter programs, the idea that a smaller, lighter, and more affordable jet could challenge the world's best sounded unrealistic. Many called it propaganda. Others laughed it off as clever marketing. But then reality caught up, and suddenly, the impossible was happening right in front of everyone. Modern air combat is unforgiving. Fighter jets are no longer judged by speed alone. They must survive dense air defenses, operate under constant satellite surveillance, fight electronic warfare battles, and still deliver results with precision. Most countries responded to this challenge by building larger aircraft packed with advanced systems, assuming complexity itself would guarantee dominance. But that approach came with a cost: massive logistics chains, extreme maintenance demands, and limited operational flexibility. This is where expectations began to crack. Instead of chasing size and extreme stealth at any cost, this aircraft was built around a different philosophy: fight smart, move fast, and stay unpredictable. It was designed to operate not just from major air bases, but from highways, rough strips, and dispersed locations. Critics said this idea belonged to the Cold War. They argued that modern sensors and satellites would make such tactics useless. What they didn't expect was how effectively modern networking, electronic warfare, and rapid turnaround would bring this concept back to life. During multinational exercises, something unusual started happening. Pilots flying far more expensive aircraft began reporting unexpected outcomes. In simulated combat, this jet wasn't just surviving, it was scoring kills. Again and again, it managed to detect, engage, and disengage before opponents could fully react. Observers initially blamed training scenarios or unrealistic rules. But as the results repeated across different exercises and against different opponents, denial became harder to maintain. One of the most shocking elements was turnaround and rank. While other fighters required long maintenance cycles, specialized equipment, and large ground crews, this jet was refueled, rearmed, and back in the air in minutes. In a real conflict, that means more sorties, more pressure on the enemy, and less time vulnerable on the ground. What looked like a small logistical detail suddenly revealed itself as a massive operational advantage. Then came the electronic warfare performance. Instead of relying solely on stealth to avoid detection, it actively fought the electromagnetic battle. Sensors were jammed, signals were distorted, and enemy awareness was degraded. This wasn't passive survival. It was active disruption. Opposing pilots later admitted they often didn't realize they were being targeted until it was too late. That moment of confusion was all it took. Another impossible claim was its cost-effectiveness. Critics argued that cheaper fighters must automatically be inferior. Yet here was proof that smart design could deliver high-end capability without astronomical expense. For smaller nations, and even larger ones, this changed the conversation entirely. Air power was no longer only for those who could afford the most expensive toys. It became about efficiency, adaptability, and strategy. What truly unsettled observers wasn't just performance in one-on-one scenarios, it was how well this aircraft worked as part of a network, sharing data, coordinating with ground systems, and acting as both a shooter and a sensor. It multiplied the effectiveness of everything around it. This meant that even against technologically advanced opponents, it could level the playing field in ways few expected. By the time officials and analysts started speaking openly, the narrative had already shifted. The laughter stopped. The dismissive comments faded. Quietly, questions replaced certainty. How did something so underestimated achieve results that so many believed were impossible? And more importantly, what else might the world be getting wrong about modern air combat? In the end, the real shock wasn't that the impossible was done. It was that the signs had been there all along. While everyone was focused on size, cost, and prestige, a different approach was being perfected. And when the moment came, it didn't need to announce itself loudly. It simply performed, leaving the rest of the world scrambling to catch up. For a long time, The idea itself sounded ridiculous. Military analysts, defense journalists, and even experienced pilots openly said it couldn't be done. In an age where air dominance seemed reserved for massive stealth aircraft backed by endless budgets, the thought that a smaller, lighter fighter could rewrite the rules felt almost laughable. The consensus was clear. Modern air warfare had become too complex, too expensive, and too technologically demanding for any alternative approach to succeed. And yet, step by step, that belief began to fall apart. The modern battlefield is unforgiving. Every movement is watched. Every signal is tracked. Every mistake is punished instantly. Fighter jets are no longer just aircraft. They are flying data centers, deeply tied into satellites, ground radars, and command networks. To survive in this environment, most nations doubled down on size, stealth coatings, and highly classified systems that require enormous support just to function. The assumption was simple: more complexity equals more power. What few considered was how that same complexity could become a weakness. This aircraft was built with a completely different mindset. Instead of assuming perfect conditions, it was designed for chaos. It assumed air bases would be targeted, runways destroyed, and supply chains disrupted. Instead of relying on massive infrastructure, it focused on rapid operations. It could land, refuel, rearm, and launch again in a fraction of the time required by most modern fighters. Critics dismissed this as irrelevant in the satellite age, claiming dispersion and mobility were outdated concepts. But war has a way of reviving old ideas when they're combined with new technology. During large-scale exercises, the unexpected began to happen. On paper, the matchups looked unfair. Heavier, stealth-focused aircraft with higher price tags were supposed to dominate. But in the air, outcomes didn't always follow predictions. Pilots began reporting engagements that ended before they fully understood what was happening. Situational awareness was disrupted. Targeting solutions appeared late. Sometimes warning systems reacted only after the engagement was already lost. At first, excuses filled the gap. Some blamed training differences. Others pointed to exercise rules. But repetition changes everything. When similar results kept appearing across different scenarios, against different opponents, and under different conditions, it became impossible to ignore. Something fundamental was being misunderstood. One of the most underestimated advantages was operational tempo. While other fighters spent long hours on the ground between missions, this aircraft kept flying. In real conflict terms, that means more sorties per day, more pressure on enemy forces, and a far greater chance to control the rhythm of the fight. Air combat isn't just about winning a single engagement. It's about sustaining pressure until the opponent can no longer respond effectively. Electronic warfare played an equally critical role. Rather than treating it as a supporting feature, it was integrated into the core of the aircraft's design. Sensors didn't just observe, they interfered. Signals weren't just detected, they were manipulated. Enemy pilots often found their picture of the battlefield incomplete or misleading. In combat, uncertainty is deadly. A few seconds of hesitation can decide the outcome of an engagement, and those seconds were being stolen repeatedly. Another assumption quietly collapsed. Cost equals capability. For decades, many believed that the most expensive systems were automatically the most effective. But real-world performance began telling a different story. Here was an aircraft that delivered high-end results without crushing budgets. That didn't just matter tactically, it mattered strategically. Nations that once believed advanced air power was beyond their reach started rethinking their options. The balance of air power suddenly looked less rigid than before. Networking became the force multiplier no one fully anticipated. This aircraft wasn't designed to fight alone. It thrived as part of a connected ecosystem, sharing data with ground units, other aircraft, and command centers in real time. It could act as a sensor, a shooter, or both, depending on what the situation demanded. That flexibility meant opponents were never quite sure what role it was playing at any given moment, and that uncertainty created hesitation. What truly unsettled observers was how calmly all of this unfolded. There was no dramatic announcement, no loud declaration of victory. Results spoke quietly but consistently. Analysts who once dismissed the concept began using different language. Interesting replaced impossible. Situational advantage replaced outmatched. Behind closed doors, questions grew more serious. If this approach worked here, where else might it work? And what other assumptions about modern air warfare might be wrong? In the end, the shock wasn't just technical, it was philosophical. For years, the world chased a single vision of air dominance: bigger, stealthier, more expensive. This aircraft proved that intelligence, adaptability, and speed of execution could challenge that vision head-on. It didn't break the laws of physics, it broke the habits of thinking. The impossible wasn't overcome by magic or secrecy. It was overcome by refusing to accept that there was only one way to win. And when the results became undeniable, the conversation changed forever. Not because someone said it would, but because it actually happened.